Gentleman yields back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous consent request.
Gentleman's recognized.
So I've got 4 documents I'd like to introduce into the record. The first one is Jeffrey Epstein's 6 story played out for years in plain sight. And Acosta is quoted in here saying, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." The second document is entitled, "What Epstein's Bodyguard Warned About His CIA Connections." The third document is from Fox Digital. It's titled, "Epstein's Private Calendar Reveals Planned Meetings with Obama Admin Official CIA Chief." And the last document is Wall Street Journal article that highlights Ehud Barak's 36 meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. He was the former Prime Minister of Israel and head of military intelligence for Israel. It may have held that title when he met Epstein, and then, yes.
Without objection, the gentleman will hold for a second. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one UC request. This is Judge Engelmeyer's decision from August in U.S. versus Epstein, stating the government's 100,000 pages of Epstein files dwarfs the 70-odd pages of Epstein grand jury materials.
Without objection, the gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I watched some of your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you, "You've seen most of the files. Who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to besides himself?" You replied, according to the transcript, "There is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else." You also said somewhere in the hearing and here today that the problem is that the case files are constrained by limited search warrants from 2006 to 2007 and that the non-prosecution agreement hamstrung future investigations. Those constraints only apply to Southern District of Florida. They do not apply to Southern District of New York, the location of the 2019 sex trafficking indictment, which produced many things, including a series of FD 302 documents. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors, such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre, may she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information, and we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new indictment.
So is the loophole here, or is it your assertion that these victims aren't credible, that the 302s maybe didn't produce credible statements that rise to a probable cause?
It's not my assertion, sir. It's the assertion of 2 different United States attorneys' offices from 3 separate administrations who investigated those same materials in live time.
Are the 302 documents in the FBI's possession?
They reviewed all that, yes, sir.
And so have you reviewed those 302 documents where the victims name the people who victimized them?
If I personally know, but the FBI has.
So how can you sit here and in front of the Senate and say there are no names?
I said
I named one today.
I said we are not in the practice at the Department of Justice FBI of releasing victims' names. That is not what we do. We are also not in the habit of releasing incredible information. That's not what we do. But multiple authorities have looked at the entirety of what we have.
Okay, I got to move on here. Were you present when the AG had the White House event when she released the binders to the social media influencers?
I was, yes.
So if you're willing to meet with social media influencers who stood to benefit from the sensational and sad stories of these victims, will you meet with the victims as well?
The FBI will meet with anyone who has new information.
Will you personally meet with them?
The FBI and the professionals who are handling the cases will.
Were you instructed that it was important to release the documents to the Oversight Committee on the day of my introduction of the discharge petition to release these files?
I don't know what day that was, so no.
Well, they were released that day, and there were victims' names who weren't redacted because they were in such a rush, and the victims are not happy about that. Have you investigated any of the CIA connections? Have you seen the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein? And if you wanted to see it, would they show it to you?
Well, I can speak for the FBI, and that's presuming there's a CIA case file. And I've reviewed everything that the interagency, not I, the FBI, that was provided to us.
Would you be willing to look at the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein?
If there is such a file, and if it has not already been turned over to the FBI will look at any new investigative leads.
Have you made any progress on the pipe bomb investigation January 6th? And have you made any progress on the motive of the Las Vegas shooter?
As to the first, it's an ongoing investigation, and we have made progress. As to the second, sir, I'll have to get back to you.
All right. Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I have a unanimous
Gentleman
consent
yields back.
request.
Unanimous consent request from the gentleman from New York.
I ask unanimous consent to introduce an unsigned memorandum from July 7, 2025 that says we did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties with the insignia of the Department of Justice and the FBI.
Without objection.
During a fiery congressional oversight hearing that will be remembered as one of the most direct confrontations ever between Congress and the upper echelons of American law enforcement, Representative Thomas Massie, Republican Kentucky, put newly confirmed FBI Director Kash Patel on the spot about the still-sealed Jeffrey Epstein files, and the exchange laid bare, in real time, the institutional machinery that has protected the powerful for years. Massie began by calmly introducing 4 documents into the record: a 2017 statement from former Labor Secretary Alexander Acosta that he had been told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone, a Fox News digital report on Epstein's bodyguard warning of CIA connections, a Wall Street Journal investigation revealing Epstein's private calendar included scheduled meetings with Obama administration officials and the then CIA director, and a separate piece documenting 36 meetings between Epstein and former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, who at the time still held or had recently held the position of head of Israeli military intelligence. With those exhibits on the table, Massie turned to the heart of the matter. He stated, on the record and without hesitation, that according to victims who cooperated with the FBI's 2019 Southern District of New York investigation, victims whose FD 302 interview summaries remain in the Bureau's possession. Those documents name at least 20 high-profile men to whom Jeffrey Epstein trafficked women and girls, including minors such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre. May she rest in peace. The list, Massie continued, is chilling in its breadth and depth of power. The former CEO of Barclays Bank, Jess Staley, one Hollywood producer worth several $100 million, one royal prince, one globally recognized figure from the music industry, one extraordinarily prominent banker, one high-ranking current government official, one high-profile former politician, the owner of a major Italian car company, one legendary rock star, one world-famous magician, and at least 6 billionaires. Among them, a Canadian billionaire whose name is already whispered in elite circles. These are not rumors, Massie emphasized. These are names recorded in official FBI witness statements, statements that the Bureau itself took down. Massie then asked 2 simple, devastating questions. Has the FBI launched investigations into any of these individuals? And has Director Patel personally reviewed the 302s in which the victims explicitly named their abusers? Patel's answers were a masterclass in bureaucratic deflection. He insisted that he had ordered agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and that any credible information would be pursued, but stressed that no new indictments had been brought forward. When pressed on why no action had been taken despite victim testimony, Patel repeatedly fell back on the claim that multiple U.S. attorneys' offices across 3 separate administrations had already examined the same material and found nothing rising to the level of probable cause. He admitted the FBI possesses the 302s but said he himself had not read them, only that the FBI had. When Massie pointed out the contradiction between Patel's earlier Senate testimony that there was no credible evidence Epstein trafficked anyone besides himself and the existence of victim statements naming 20 specific men, Patel retreated behind policy. The Department of Justice and FBI do not release victim names or non-credible information. The exchange grew even more revealing when Massie asked whether Patel had been present at the White House event where binders of Epstein-related documents were handed to social media influencers for maximum publicity, and whether the director would personally meet with the actual victims. Patel confirmed he was present at the influencer event but deflected the victim meeting to FBI professionals who handle the cases. Massie then raised the suspicious timing of a recent document production to the Oversight Committee, delivered the very day he introduced a discharge petition to force full release of the Epstein files, during which victim names were accidentally left unredacted because of the rush. The victims, he said, were furious. Massie closed his questioning by asking about alleged CIA files on Epstein and whether the Bureau had made progress on the January 6th pipe bomb case and the Las Vegas shooter's motive, questions designed to highlight the selective energy the FBI devotes to certain investigations versus its apparent paralysis on Epstein. Patel offered only that the pipe bomb case was ongoing and that he would get back on Las Vegas. What unfolded in those 5 minutes was not routine oversight. It was a public demonstration of how power protects itself. Thomas Massie stood in the well of the House Judiciary Committee and, using the victim's own words as recorded by the FBI itself, listed categories of men: bankers, billionaires, royals, entertainers, intelligence-linked foreign leaders, who allegedly participated in Epstein's crimes. He proved the names exist in official files. And the FBI director, under oath and on live television, offered nothing but layers of procedural insulation. I haven't read them personally. Previous administrations already looked. We only act on credible evidence. Credibility is decided by the same system that has buried this case for 2 decades, the Acosta quote. I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. Hung in the air like smoke that refuses to clear. So did the 36 meetings with Ehud Barak, the scheduled sit-downs with CIA leadership, the warnings to prosecutors. When a sitting congressman can lay out, category by category, the elite clientele of a convicted sex trafficker and the nation's top law enforcement official responds with variations of nothing to see here, the American people are witnessing something far darker than incompetence. They are watching institutional capture in real time, an apparatus that has every incentive to keep the Epstein client list forever sealed because the names inside threaten the very architecture of transnational power. This hearing was not about conspiracy theories. It was about documented victim testimony sitting in FBI vaults while the director of that same FBI claims ignorance or impotence. It was about a justice system that hands glossy binders to TikTok influencers for photo ops but refuses to sit down with the broken women whose lives were traded like currency. And it was about the chilling realization that, 6 years after Epstein's controversial death, the most powerful men he served remain untouched, not because evidence is lacking, but because the evidence is controlled by the same institutions that once looked away. Thomas Massie did not get the answers the country deserves, but he forced the question into the open in a way that can no longer be ignored. If the FBI possesses victim statements naming 20 of the world's most influential men as participants in child trafficking, and not one of them has faced investigation, then who exactly is the FBI protecting? The answer, laid bare in that hearing room, is no longer a mystery. It never was the victims.